Hello everyone and happy Juneteenth. My name is Imani. I'd like to thank Afro Senpai for inviting me to talk to you about this sensitive, emotional, yet important part of American history. Images, stories, and videos shown and discussed in this video may not be suitable for younger children, so parents, we encourage you to watch the video in its entirety on your own first, to best determine what your child can handle. This is history you are not taught in school, but should have a basic acknowledgement of. To be clear, this video was curated to educate rather than place blame. By learning about the past, we can capitalize on present opportunities to build wealth and create capital for several future generations. The resources used to create this video will be in the description should you find yourself wanting to learn more. And now I present to you, History of the Black Dollar. The transatlantic slave trade became a lucrative and simultaneously devastating set of events with lasting consequences. Some slaves were purchased from West African nations, but most were stolen. Between 1526 and 1867, 12.5 million captured men, women, and children would make the dangerous journey. However, due to horrific conditions, less than 11 million made the complete journey alive. In the 1800s, nations agreed the brutality of the slave trade must end, so countries began to abolish it. The Portuguese populate their colonies with enslaved West Africans. Spain and Portugal create colonies in the New World. Captured African slaves are brought to the New World to replace enslaved indigenous people. Dutch, English, and French create colonies in the New World. A large percentage of slaves are from West Africa between Senegal and Niger. Demand for slaves increased with the growth of sugar plantations in the Caribbean and tobacco plantations in the Chesapeake region in North America. To say that the long trip from Africa to North America was traumatizing is an understatement. The sights of sullen faces, the sounds of pain and agony, the wretched stench of urine and feces, and the confined spaces were enough to psychologically break anyone. The fact that so many Africans survived the voyage given the treacherous conditions is a testament to how strong the people are.
Give us free!
Men and women were separated both above and below deck. When the Africans were unchained, they were brought above deck. Lasting about 8 hours, the above deck time was spent doing forced labor. Those who did not comply were beaten and tortured. Some Africans did take the above deck time to jump off the ship, knowing death was better than being a slave. Mutiny was often organized by the females but was largely unsuccessful. The two main causes of death along the voyage were the horrific conditions or slaves being tied together and thrown off the ship to preserve rations and or stop illnesses from spreading. Some of the first Africans brought to North America were taken to the Jamestown colony in Virginia. Europe had goods and had money. Goods and money were exchanged for African slaves. African slaves were brought to North American colonies. The colonies used free labor to cultivate the land and sell their resources to Europe. Resources included sugar, tobacco, cotton, molasses, and rum. The largest number of enslaved Africans are taken in this century. The 80s became the peak decade for the slave trade, with over 75,000 Africans being brought over each year. Oloda Equiano, witnessing the atrocities of the slave ships as a child, writes about his experiences when he's older.
The first objects which saluted my eyes when I arrived on the coast were the sea and the slave ship and awaiting its cargo. These filled me with astonishment, which was soon converted into terror. And I was now persuaded that I had gotten into a world of bad spirits, and that they were going to kill me. As the multitude of black people of every description chained together, every one of their countenances expressing dejection and sorrow. I no longer doubted my fate, and quite overpowered with horror and anguish, I fell motionless on the deck and fainted. I now saw myself deprived of all chance of returning to my native country, but I was not long suffered to indulge my grief, for I was soon put down under the decks. There I received such a salutation in my nostrils as I had never experienced in my life. The stench, the closeness of the place, the heat of the climate, the number of us forced to live in those conditions with scarcely room to turn almost suffocated us.
His depiction of the conditions are so vivid, he begins to change public opinion regarding the business of trading slaves. Great Britain abolishes the slave trade within its colonies. Congress bans importing new slaves. Spain and Great Britain sign a treaty to abolish the slave trade. Because diseases ravaged the indigenous people of North America, African slaves were captured and brought to the New World. While some Africans were purchased, most were stolen. Warlords and tribal leaders, swayed by the temptation of money or resources from colonizers, engendered the depopulation of West African nations. To be clear, African people are not stupid. If they had excess slaves to sell, they may be willing to part with some, but it would have made no sense to sell the very people that are needed to help build and cultivate their nation, implying most Africans were stolen. This depopulation, along with the constant fear of captivity, made the economic and agricultural development of West Africa virtually impossible. So on the east side of the Atlantic, you have several nations in decline, and to the west you have people working for free, generating wealth for those who captured them. Colonizers and the slave trade killed two birds with one stone. Next year, we will discuss life on the plantations. If you learned something new, please comment below, like the video, and share it with someone. Again, I would like to thank Afro Senpai for having me on as a guest. If you are new to the channel and enjoy learning about how to build your wealth with a growth mindset, please subscribe. Thank you for watching.